You may be thinking about coming to the US for school, for jobs, for maybe just a new start. Well, there may be some things that you want to watch out for and be mindful of, like people rumbling in the kitchen. No, like other things. So, we are going to be talking about all of these situations that may occur to you or that you're thinking about doing by someone who's done it before so they can help us answer some questions and get you prepared to make sure that your transition is as smooth and as easy as possible. We're going to be talking with Tina, who we talked with previously. She came to the US in 2016 for grad school. She's handled the academic life, she's handled the work life, the work visa life, the life on the East Coast, life on the West Coast, living now in the Bay Area. Please give a nice warm welcome to Tina. Hi, Tina.
Hello. Thank you for
Thank,
having me, Jeff.
thank you for being here. Tina, is there anything you feel like I missed in your intro? It's very extensive.
Mother of two cats.
I think I hit that the first time, but I didn't hit this time. That is fair.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
you can't see it on screen, but she has like a massive play structure for her cats, which is they don't pay her enough. They don't pay you enough. Um, so Tina, can you tell us? Let's maybe start with how you even just ended up here. So it's 2016. You're looking at
Mhm.
grad school programs. What happens?
So I was dating this boy, um, and he wanted to come to the US for grad school. So I thought, oh, it looks really cool. And then initially I thought it's not possible for me because it's probably going to be too expensive for my family. But then my boyfriend at the time, his family is even less well off than my family. And I thought, oh, if he can do it, I could do it. So I made my mom sell her house, and then I decided to come to the US.
I was unaware of that. Okay, cool. Continue.
This is this is how Chinese families are like. They give you unconditional support, and then they in return
Yeah.
ask for um, permission to cross your boundaries and give you directions on your life. Hit you with a stick when you play the piano. Um,
Which was not your experience.
it was not my
It
experience.
was okay. To be clear. Okay. Um, so you arrived in a city I'm very familiar with. I'm not from there, but I have a lot of
Hmm.
family there. So you came to Pittsburgh. You're at Carnegie Mellon.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh. I don't know if you were prepared for the. Pittsburgh's kind of in this weird gray area between East Coast and Midwest. It gets kind of the Midwest sort of weather, and it's lots of gray. You're studying tech. How was your experience in Pittsburgh?
I want to preface by saying that I don't think I actually know the real Pittsburgh because I did not have a car, I didn't have money, and I didn't have friends. So I was mostly just around 1 mile within the campus radius. But I was too young and too naive. I think to me back then, it's more just like, oh, I'm going to school in a different city. It could very well just be like Beijing. Um, and then I did not expect how different it would be. Um, it's not a pleasant memory, just because of how miserable my life was, how lonely I was, how hard school was, and also just the kind of gloomy weather, the rain, winter, adds
Yeah.
on to the sadness.
Yeah, it's
Oh, so I
the
broke
part.
up with the boyfriend that got me to the US a few weeks after I got here. So now I think of him as this angel sent to me by the universe. His goal is
Mm,
to get me to the US, and then he left. So I
that's
wish him all the best.
this
But
is it's like job fulfilled. It's like all
yep,
right, we can.
yep, no idea where he is now.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think that's one thing too. I just want to highlight. I think when people think college life in the U.S., what they have in mind is often undergrad college life, which is very different than grad school college life. Like when you, if you guys are familiar with like the media and the portrayals of how undergrad life is in the U.S. or how college life is in the U.S., you're looking at undergrad. You're looking at 18 to 21-year olds who are partying and stuff like that, who make these friendships and things like that. Grad school is very different. Outside of like law school or medical school, people are a lot of people are part time. and even if they are full time, the course load is not as much as it was in undergrad for a lot of programs, depending on what you're studying. Okay, so like the social aspect of grad school, what I'm trying to convey is that that social aspect is a lot more difficult than it is for undergrad. Also just because like the ages are different, you know, because grad school you get people who are 22, but then you also get like 40 and 50-year olds. Like this, it's a pretty big mix. So that's kind of just something to be aware of if you're thinking about studying abroad in the U.S. So I think you need to kind of have a game plan for how you're going to make friends and things like that. Um,
I did notice that when I came here, because in China it's not as common for people to go back to grad school after they already have a career. It
mm,
has become more and more common, but
hmm.
usually people just go to grad school after they
Like right
graduate
after.
from college.
Hmm.
Exactly. So all of us, like Chinese international students, came as like 21, 22, 23 years old with like we were just basically kids, have no life
Yeah,
skills.
yeah.
But then for because I went to computer science school, so it's like half Chinese people, half Indian people, and all the Indian people, they all had jobs before, and they all know how
Hmm.
to take care of themselves. They all know how to cook, and they all speak much better English. They all had like a suit, and they can go to career fairs looking really professional with a resume, and that was such a big difference for me to just observe kind of how sheltered I had been um, in my entire life up to that point.
I think that another aspect about just like that life school aspect. I think if you're planning on moving to U.S., like hey, knowing how to cook is probably a good thing. I did not, to be fair, in my own experiences living abroad, I learned to cook when I was abroad. You know, you learn how to handle bills and things like that and things, but the more you can kind of be familiar with just basic life stuff that's universal, no matter what culture you're in, I think is a kind of a good thing you want to try to get a handle on. Um, I want to kind of talk about that social aspect a little bit. I mean, we're social creatures. We don't want to. We need other people. You don't need like necessarily a ton of people, but you need people. Um, I think that I'm thinking back to just my experience when I was an IELTS examiner. One of the things we would tell each other when we were IELTS examiners is like, so a lot of students they were aiming to get the bare minimum, and for a lot of schools in the U.S. because a lot of schools just want to earn money from international students and just kind of like shake them. Um, they often have very low requirements for IELTS. And when I say low, I mean like band 6 IELTS, sometimes even the band 5.5, which is like so wild to me. But if you're thinking about studying abroad in the US, please, 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 and I know you don't want to hear this, but please don't aim for that minimum score because what we would often tell each other as examiners is that if you get like a band 6 on IELTS, that basically means you can handle the coursework, but you are not going to have any friends. You are not you do not have the language ability to really communicate with people on a social level, and because and again these are mostly students again thinking undergrad. Um, because so much of undergrad is yes it's about academics but the
Mhm.
social component, these are people that you meet that you may be friends with for the rest of your life, so that the social component is really fundamental to college. I really can't in the US. I know colleges in different countries is different, but in the US the social component is really really key. This is when you develop those like kind of relationships that you have for a very long time. um, you are not going to be able to get the most out of your college experience if you're looking at a band definitely a band 5.5, but even a band 6, 6.5, if you want to actually be like socially adept, you're really looking minimum band 7. And even band 7 isn't going to be the easiest, but you can do it. But um, everyone wants to just rush in and just go. You'd be like, look, I'm in the school and things like that, but I don't think they think about their quality of life. Um, we have a question from from my wife. Yes, Kathy. What if they are friends from people with their own? So that is true. So you can if your goal is to, for instance, like stay in the U.S. for a long time and interact with people from the U.S., I'm I am approaching it from that sort of perspective. If you are fine with hanging out with people from your country, even when you're abroad, hey, it happens. All there's plenty of people they move to the U.S. and they live. Their English gets worse when they move to the U.S. It's because they're just. We've seen it. I know you've seen this before. I know you've seen this here.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people just think you come to the U.S. and this your language just magically gets better. But
Yeah.
you can do that. But I'm assuming you want to like socially navigate American culture, and if that's not you, then you know disregard everything I'm saying. Tina, if you had to give yourself advice, like social advice for that period in your life again, what would you tell yourself,
Um,
if anything?
um, First, I want to touch on the point you made about language scores. I have not taken the IELTS, but I did TOEFL and I had 111 out of 120, I think. And that was pretty high among my friends.
Congratulations, that's a
Um,
good score.
yeah, and I think I all the points I lost, all of them were in speaking. Because I've never had to speak English before before I had to take the TOEFL exam. So
Mhm.
I did know that it's not like I thought it was gonna be really easy, but I did not expect just kind of comprehension during lectures would be hard. Um, I was pretty confident about like academic stuff or even just reading and writing, but soon realized even that was really hard. I wasn't used to reading so much, so I was really slow. Um, and then there's a lot of required reading here in America.
Let's just talk about like if you're doing grad school, like it's not uncommon for a programmer you're in to expect you to be reading like 100 pages a day of stuff. Now you learn the techniques to how to do that, but that's sort of an expectation. The other thing I would mention too is this isn't high school or like grade school because in the US, like if you're a second language learner, you come to US, they have like ESL services, like they have professionals that are there to guide you. Your college professors have no ESL training. They are not prepared. They're going to treat you just like they treat all the other students. Not that I think that's a good approach on them. We can talk all about
Mm,
pedagogy, but the reality is these professors, one, they're not really even trained on teaching most often. Even for native speakers, they're just kind of teaching you how they saw their professors teach them. So there's not a lot of times with professors a lot of knowledge about how to actually effectively teach students. So your professors are not going to be prepared for you if you're coming in with a weak language background. Just
yeah,
another thing to kind of consider.
and all of them, all of the American professors have really poor handwriting. Their penmanship is illegible. It's just so hard to read.
That wasn't. Thank you for that addition.
For
Fortunately now,
that stereotype. Mm.
fortunately nowadays, it's a lot of like. Actually, it's kind of unfortunate. It's a lot of PowerPoint. It's a lot of like um, slides and typed documents now. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
handwriting
true.
inspector. Um,
I remember because the first few days was really hectic. I was trying to get like a credit card and stuff.
oh God,
Hi, Farhan.
yeah. What's the problem?
Um, so our school was like, oh, there's this really important thing that's called an orientation. You should all come. And I had no idea what an orientation was, but I was told
Please
it
go to
was important.
everyone. Please, if you go to college, please go to your orientation. Please
Yeah.
go.
So I went, and then I did not expect everyone to have to introduce ourselves.
Oh,
Um, and I know we talked about this in our group, but I did not have like a self introduction prepared. I did not really have to do that before in China. So that was like on the spot, really stressful because all the American kids
that's
were like, "Oh, in my free time, I like to ski." I was like, "Oh, what do I like in my spare time? I have no idea. What do I?" And everyone else is just like, "Oh, I like travel and I like music," and everybody sounds the same, which is kind of sad. And I felt like I had to be the interesting person. I had to be an interesting Chinese person and come up with things to say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
but
I mean, I think that's a good skill
um,
for everyone to everyone like if you're watching this, I don't care if you're planning on moving to US or not. Like please what's up to Abdul? Have a just like a quick I would say have like a 3 second intro to yourself ready, have like a 10-second intro to yourself ready, and then have like a 30-second. I think those are kind of some good life skills just to kind of have in mind. Um I'm also thinking back to what you said about like test scores and things because I think that also speaks to my experience when I was in Italy. Because like when I tested, because like at the school I was going to, they had placement tests, and again like the grammar scores were fine, the writing scores were fine, but the speaking was like you're in this weird mix of like where do we put you? Because you're good in these one areas, but then these other areas you're like really lacking it. So like it's um definitely be prepared for that. Everyone needs to really practice your speaking skills as much as possible. Um, I think we're
back
avoiding the
to
question.
social skills. You guys can tell it. Um, I feel very uncomfortable with this question. I think
mm,
initially I avoided, um, and this kind of touches back on your wife's question. I kind of avoided making friends with other Chinese people in my program, and now I know it's a lot about me and not really about them. But back then I thought, oh, I'm here and I want to prove that I can make friends with everybody. I'm not gonna kind of use this clutch. I'll prove that my English is good enough and I'm smart enough to be understood. Um, and I did notice a lot of my Chinese friends. Not, maybe they don't consider me as their friends,
oh, Dak.
but they kind of stay in like small groups. They try to
Mhm.
uh, do things together, and they order Chinese food.
Mm.
I deliberately avoid doing any of that, which ended up making just me with no friends. So I had to find my way, kind of making friends with people from office hours, or just in a library or some activities. I did not really attend much. I was too busy, but
Yeah.
it was definitely quite lonely for me. Um, the
Mhm.
4 semesters of grad school.
I resonate with that. When I was abroad as well, I kind of made my mission. I'm like, I am staying. Like, I am only here for a short amount of time, so it's like I can. I like the Americans I came here with, but like I can meet Americans in the U.S. So it's like now is like my time. This is like my one shot to really, interact with as many different people, from Italy and other countries as well. Um, so I definitely feel that. I understand that sense of like I'm doing the thing right now, and
Hmm. I
it's there's
also
there's sacrifices.
I also noticed that I come from a different background because I changed major for grad
Mm,
school. I was an econ student, so a lot of my classmates they all know what they wanted. They they had such clear goals. They knew exactly what courses they're gonna take. I had no idea. I once took a course that's like called something something language, and I thought it was about English or like other languages, but it turns out it was given by the School of Computer Science. So it was about natural language processing, like machine learning stuff.
oh.
But I ended up learning things, so it was a good course.
When do you think things changed like socially, or maybe they haven't and you're still going through these same struggles, but
Mm,
do you feel like there was a moment where things started improving?
um, there was a course I took on IT consulting when I got to kind of partner with a community um, organization and help them with some like technology stuff.
Hmm.
So that's when I actually got to talk to real Americans that is not in like the academic setting. and it felt really good that they could understand me and I could understand them. Um, and that I actually did something that was helpful. Um, and I did a presentation. I believe it was my first English presentation, and I had to
Huh.
dress up, which was also new. Like there's no dressing up for presentations in China. Um,
Hmm.
I think I went a bit. I think I was a little overdressed. It was not a
I mean,
presentation dress. It was more like a,
you're like
I
into like a
don't,
wedding gown. You're like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I looked really weird, but it was a proud moment.
take it. Yeah, I mean, it better be
Mm,
over prepared and under. That's good. Um, I think that also kind of speaks to the importance of when you're in something that's so radically new and different, like trying to seek out like the wins, like just like the little successes, like even if it's just like what I tell students all the time is like waking up with like a set challenge to be like, okay, like before I go to bed today, I have to say hello to three people, or like before I go to bed tonight, I have to um try using this vocab word that I've been working on. Like I think just having like those little things that you can kind of check the box just to see like I am moving forward because unfortunately, and Tina, I'm sure you can attest to this too. Like with language learning and like culture and things like that, there are days when you're like, I feel like I'm doing everything great. Today's a really good day. Like I feel really confident in what I'm doing, and then that will immediately be followed by weeks of like, this is going. I can't do what I want to do.
hmm
I said this wrong. I'm doing this wrong. Like it's very much this constant roller coaster, you know. So I think having those little successes can be really meaningful. And none of that came through because I was on a spike. Could you hear what I was saying or no?
Yep, yep. I heard. I heard everything.
Maybe.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think people are different.
Okay.
Some people may be better at not taking um, all the feedback from the outside world as a reflection of who they are. Um, I think I was less good at that. Also, I was a bit younger. I was also trying to figure out whether I'm smart or not, which meant a lot to me. Still today means a lot to me. With like that major change. So
Yeah.
socially, it was hard. Academically, it was also pretty hard.
Do you find that when you moved to California, things got easier?
Hmm. um,
Sorry, that was an
there's something
unscripted
I wanted
question.
to
Sorry.
say, but I probably won't say this on the live stream. I'll tell you afterwards.
I'm adding a
um,
note to our private chat.
yeah, I think especially Bay Area is really different. It's a big bubble. If I only stay with people in tech, then I probably feel a lot more at home because there are, like you said, there are people here whose English got worse after they moved here. Their Cantonese probably got better. Um, and if I want to just stay with a certain group and feel very comfortable, I definitely can do that. But there's also more there are things I wasn't aware, like some political opinions or social
Mm,
issues. Um, I did not know how to understand them because I still feel not as informed to make a decision.
mm,
Um, and there are a lot of Asian Americans here compared to Pittsburgh and
yeah.
Philly and New York, Delaware. That's the three places I lived. Um, and I did observe a lot of differences in um, different communities, and also people who I thought would share a lot with me that turned out to actually maybe have more differences than some other communities.
Mm. Ouch.
Um,
That sounds painful. Oh, my
I'm trying to give meaningful answers, but also tread very carefully.
God. Yeah,
Mm,
got you. Yeah,
mm,
I think people need to understand how much of a unique. There's a couple places in the U.S. that are just very unique compared to the rest of the country. Um, California is definitely one of them. Even like in just different parts of California as well. What you see in California is not necessarily what you're going to see in the rest of the country. Another state like that is also going to be Texas. Texas is also a very
mhm.
unique um, state. Just kind of a heads up on that. Um, Before we talk about that, and Tina, give me time updates if you're like, Jeff, I gotta go. Like, just be like,
Mm-mm.
this is. Um, let's just kind of wrap up grad school really quick. Any tips? Any final tips you would like to give to people who are thinking about grad school, post grad in the U.S.?
I think I don't know if I were in a position of like moving to the US for grad school right now. I actually don't know if I wanted more tips, if I wanted to know more, or if
Hmm.
I would rather know less, because that make would make me more confident. If I knew how much I would experience, I may not make that decision as lightly. Um,
That's a fair answer. Go blind, people.
I'm not sure, yeah, because I'm a pretty sensitive person,
Hmm.
but I know people who are not like that. And I do want to make friends, and I do care a lot about whether I can understand things that's going on here.
Hmm.
Um,
That brings it. Well, we have so in case you guys don't know, we have a group coaching program, and we have a member in our group who is right now going through the college experience grant for undergrad. And one of the biggest tips that I really tried to emphasize with them and continue to do so is the need, I would say, to really try to get involved with groups and communities as soon as possible. And I think that's a little bit harder with grad school because again, these are things that in general they're more associated with the undergrad experience than the grad school experience. Um, but there's still opportunities out there for grad school students as well. And the reason you really want to get involved with groups is one, it just gives you a community, it helps you meet people, it helps you meet people with a common interest, and they also, I mean, they give you like something to do. Like I think sometimes when you come to a new country, like yeah, there's a million things to do because you got to find a place to live, you got to set up your phone, you got to set up bank. Like there are a million things. I'm not to downplay that, but there's also going to be like, oh my gosh, like I look at my schedule and I never know, like when my classes are done, I never know what to do. Or like, what do I do like 7 o'clock on Wednesdays? Like, I don't know. So like just having that kind of regular sort of routine um, is something I think is also really helpful. So that's just another tip. And if you are in grad school, maybe if you don't see a lot of organizations and things like that, there's other things you can do, especially if you're located like in like a downtown area or something like that. Signing up for like an art class downtown, or like signing up for like a yoga class, or like volunteering, like for instance, like Habitat for Humanity, like building houses and stuff like that. These are just trying to get involved with people as soon as possible because it's so easy to feel isolated. This can really help you avoid it. Just a note. Um, so we talked a little bit about the academic life. Can we talk a little bit about work life? Is that okay, Tina?
sure, sure.
She's like, fine. um, so let's kind of start off with just the basics. How did you find a job in the U.S.?
So I went to these career fairs that companies would attend at my school, and I talked to some of the companies. I applied to a lot of them. I think I interviewed with maybe 3 to 5, and then I got an offer from this French company called Air Liquide, um, and that was I think within the first month of fall, which is kind of early in the process for people. Um, it was the first offer I got. It wasn't the best. It's not like a tech company, but I was so tired and I just gave up after that and I just took it and I dropped out of as many classes as I could and I went part time for my last semester and I started doing more social stuff or like uh, school activity stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I got a car and I learned how to drive and all of
Stick shift in Pittsburgh.
that.
For those who don't know, Pittsburgh is when it gets snow. It's icy in the winter.
Hmm.
It's very very hilly. You do not want to drive a stick shift in Pittsburgh in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
It is.
But a lot of my friends, they wanted to go to the flag, move to
Mm,
California, move to the Bay Area. I did
mhm,
not have that goal, so I was pretty happy with just having a job back then.
mhm. Got you. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, 3 to 5 interviews like to Lance. That's pretty good. I mean,
I
granted, I know
was
you
really
said it was.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really lucky.
How would you say was the adjustment from school life to work life? Because I'm guess this was your
Mm,
first. This is kind of like your first like adult job.
Yep,
Like okay.
yep. That was my first real job.
Hmm.
Um, I think I had a big like good student mindset still, and I wanted to be like the best team member. I tried a lot to kind of show that I was really competent and stuff. Um, and gradually, I started learning about corporate America
Oh
and
God.
capitalism, and I became less of a good working bee.
Oh dag.
Yep.
um, any tips that you would give to people, kind of just like for the interview process and things like that? If you remember, I know this
Mm.
was some time ago.
I know with tech it's pretty complicated because people do have to practice like the lead code stuff. Um, I- for people who don't know what lead code is, it's like a collection of algorithm and data structure questions that get asked during these kind of technical interviews. That itself is a lot of work. Um, and for me, my kind of area is machine learning, so they also may ask you about some models and some like the math behind a model. For people who just graduate from school or who are still in school and haven't worked on real problems with like big data sets that's messy and dirty and uh, just has a lot of missing data and errors and stuff. It's really hard to anticipate what actually um, like what your actual work would be like. It's going to be really different from your school project, so everything you have on your resume from school or from like Kaggle and these competitions they've done, it's going to be really different from your actual job. And hopefully the companies set up their interview process in a way that um, does not need does not require people to have that kind of experience. um, I do know job hunting is a bit harder right now, especially for people with less experience. So I'm not exactly sure
Hmm.
how how people's situation with this is. It's just with students even because I work with this boot camp for women to transition to tech,
Oh, cool.
and we used to offer opportunities for them to intern at our company and then transition to a full-time person. But we actually discontinued that partnership. So I don't know about actual school programs.
Right. Yeah.
But back in
Um,
my year, that was 2017. It was not easy, but it was smooth-ish to get into a tech company if you're someone in like a decent school and you do enough prep.
I do want to say this is not my own experience because I have my own. business and stuff like that. But for those people who are looking for jobs, it's I would say the last. I mean, I would say for like the last 5, 6 years, it has not been. I mean, honestly, since like even like 2008, like ever since like the housing crisis, like it's getting jobs has not been an easy process. It is not unheard of people spending months going on like hundreds and hundreds of interviews and not sometimes not even hearing back from companies. Like the fact like you can interview at a place and just never hear back from them. Like just companies just ghosting
Hmm.
is like so high. It is not a pleasant process to go through. But I don't think the U.S. is alone in that. I think a lot of places are hard to find jobs in. Um,
And I think with working from home, it's making it harder for people, especially like us who need to learn like the corporate lingo or what is normal in American workplace, um, or just how to do small
mm,
talk. That has been pretty hard, um, for
do you
people who join a company virtually from their living room.
do you have a small talk strategy?
I'm pretty good at small talk.
You're like I dabble.
Yeah. Um, I think it's all about confidence. If you don't feel
mm,
awkward, the other person would feel awkward first. And you just
oh my
pretend that
gosh,
you
yeah.
don't feel awkward.
It's
It's just power play.
it is. I mean, people are mirror. Like anytime you enter a conversation with someone, you basically become like mirrors of each other. And like if one person gets nervous energy, you're gonna like pass it off to and people don't like that. Um,
I
another
appreciate small talk so much.
hmm.
I know people hate it, but I also don't particularly love it. But it's such a good tool to test if someone's normal. If they can do like a small talk and they know, oh,
This
this is
is
awkward, and they feel
mm,
awkwardness, and you know they're a normal person, and you know they know how to set boundaries and kind of
mhm.
gauge at the situation, your relationship, and the environment you're in, all of that. It's so important.
I think the issue people have with small talk is I think they a lot of times don't necessarily go into it with a goal. Like I don't think I think there's a lack of understanding about why am I doing this, you know?
Mm.
Um, whereas I think if you approach it with a little bit more intentionality, I find that a lot more helpful. Um, another little You've been very patient. Sorry about the spikes. Another little tip I would give just for like small talk and like conversations things is an approach that I find helpful for me is that when I enter in a conversation, my goal is to make it as little bit about me as possible. I'm trying to find out as much about the other person as possible. So like, um, and I think like if you can try to find out um, as much info about that other person, like try to find out, and the sooner you can find about the thing that they're interested in the most, that opens things up because you know I can find someone who just really likes their lawn. They just really like grass. But like if they're really into it and like if they're passionate about it, it's like, all right, well, I don't particularly care about grass, but I can talk about grass for 5, 10 minutes. Like, okay, and like I can walk away learning because, like, you find that passion and like you can see it in people's eyes, like you can see it in their body language. Like, you hit that spark, and it's like, all right, let's try to run with that. So that's kind of been my approach with small talk that I think has been helpful is just trying to find people's passions and things that they're really interested in. It is a valuable skill. Um,
I think
I know,
small
I know.
talk is important for me because when I was less confident in my social skills and my English skills, I tried to talk to impress,
Mm,
and I talk to prove something.
mhm.
So I tend to maybe sometimes even create trouble
It can
because
cause
I don't
issues.
want to stay with the normal.
Hmm.
I'm uncomfortable when I'm quiet or when I don't know how to answer a question. I want to come up with
Hmm.
something really quickly. Compared to now, I'm a lot more confident with silence or like taking time to think. Because I know that's not going to be reflected on me being, not good at English necessarily.
The pause is a very underrated tool. I know we talk about that a lot in the group, but like just the importance of pauses and moments of silence, I think are actually. I think we're often trained that they're moments of weakness, but they're actually. It's a pretty big power move if you can talk and kind of just sit in the silence for a minute. That's a. Um, I think we need to get more comfortable with that. Um, so I think this also touches on a topic I want to.
I thought we were gonna go on a competition of
Oh,
kids
just
not
just
talking.
stare, just like just sit with that. Just take that and like just like do what you will with it for a minute. Just that actually is for those of you who I know because sometimes we get some like teachers on the channel things like that. One of the most important teaching things is when you ask a question, and I think this is true outside of classroom too. But when you ask a question, don't rush to answer. Just wait. It's okay. Like the general rule that we've seen. So my master's degree is in teaching English as a second language. The general rule that you see a lot is 10 seconds. If you ask a question, that means that you need to wait this long. And either someone's going to get, someone else is going to get uncomfortable and they're going to start talking, or it's going to be like, all right, well, then we'll move on to the next thing. Or that can be assigned to you that maybe you need to elaborate on something. Like pause. Pause is super important. Um, this all kind of leads to one discussion. I do want to make sure we have time for it. I know we've already been
Hmm.
going very very long. Tina, thank you for your generosity with your time. Um, Tina, you're very adept linguistically in terms of the vocab you're using, picking up on social cues, idioms and phrases and things like that. These are all difficult things to do in any language, let alone trying to do it in a second language. How would you say you've arrived at where you are with just trying to, with your ability to pick up nuances in a second language? How did you get here?
Hmm. That felt good. Um,
Aw, good. You you deserve these claps. I think they're coming through.
I do think I'm more curious about these things, or I try to reflect a lot on myself and other people. And I love judging people and myself. Um, but it has not been easy. There are definitely a lot of uh, maybe not painful but uncomfortable
They can be painful
situations
too.
that I
They can,
that
they
I
can be painful.
I had to learn through that. Mhm.
So just trial and error. Is that kind of the big thing I'm hearing?
Mm, well, I don't want to like brag too much, but I really like uni psychology, and I've been doing therapy myself for many years, analysis, and also I do read a lot about psychology. So I think I do tend to notice more, or I want to improve a bit more in that sense. Um, and I try to be friends with different kinds of people when I can. Um,
Hmm. Because reading a room is not necessarily an easy thing to do. Picking up on people's energies, like for instance, I think if you're a teacher, like you have to have some people skills. Like you have to be able to say something and you almost kind of ignore the answers that people give and you pay a lot more attention to the body language that people are giving you or like the cues because there's so many cues, right? I mean people say things but then like if people are kind of like raising an eyebrow, if people are like or if people are just like staring like stone faced and things like these are all tell you very different
mhm,
things and like from a teacher perspective it's called like comprehension checks. Like anytime you ask a question you almost can't trust the answer that people give you. Like you have to find other ways to kind of measure and see, are people actually understanding? Because sometimes you get
Yeah.
like the quiet kid that understands everything perfectly, but they don't say anything in class. So you kind of need to make sure other ways to check. But then you get other kids who are super vocal, but then like you press them a little bit more and you see that, oh, they're not really understanding. But applying this to more like social things, like especially like if you're talking about how in grad school, you kind of went through like kind of that period of being on your own and things like that. Like if someone's trying to pick up these cues better, are there any sorts of suggestions that you would give to them?
Pick up cues on if someone is lonely.
Pick up cues on just the sort of how someone is feeling in any situation. Like, oh, I can tell that that person is nervous. Oh, I can tell that this person is trying to end a conversation. So I should not continue pressing them. Oh, pick up cues like, oh, they're saying yes, but they actually don't
Mm,
want to. Like, we've probably many of us are probably familiar with, like, for instance, like the Japanese stereotype. Like you ask someone from Japan, like, oh, like come to this party, and then they give you an answer, and you're like, you leave the conversation not knowing, are they going to come to my
mhm,
party or are they
mhm.
not going to come to my party? Like, how do you feel like you can develop that sort of like social sense with Americans particularly?
I think a lot of stereotyping can help, kind of getting a
Mm,
basic, because we all come from a different background. I think it's actually helpful for me to have like a model of like a typical European person, typical American person, typical Canadian person, which is exactly an American person with less.
my Canadian audience just turned off the stream. It's like, oh,
Yeah, with less likelihood to meet them. um, and then kind of adjust from there. Because, for example, when I first came here, I was asked to speak up a lot. And I was really uncomfortable with that because that was considered rude in China if you talk really loudly. Um, but then I noticed all Americans are really loud. I go to a bar, I cannot hear anything, or hear everything. It's so I started building like a really biased view of a typical person from a particular background because um, and I think this is also like a union psychology concept, but everyone has like a compass of the world, and you kind of position yourself somewhere. And when you change to somewhere completely different, your compass kind of get lost. You don't know where that is anymore because
mhm,
your world just got bigger, and you don't know how to put where to put yourself anymore. So my way is to judge more and then adjust my judgments based on more real interactions. But it took me quite many years to readjust um, and know where I land or where I want to land. Is this something I want to change? Do I
mhm,
want to talk louder? Do I want to be seen as more confident, or do I want to stay humble? Um,
mhm,
Not to say talking loudly is not humble, but like more in that way reserved. That could
mhm.
be seen as not confident here. It's a lot of observing and judging and correcting your judgment, I think.
Mm, mhm. Do you think there's the things you can also pick up on from purely just like watching like the media and like shows and things like that, or do you think some of it has to kind of be lived experience?
Not sure. I don't watch a lot of media or shows, so I don't really
Same.
know.
Yeah.
Mm. But maybe
I appreciate.
podcasts can be better. Podcasts like Jeff's.
Interesting you say that because I think you lose. Obviously, when you have a podcast, you're in an audio platform, so you lose some of the body language stuff. But on the other hand, what you gain is, I mean, one of the things that we talk a lot about in the group is, for instance, like intonation patterns, wavering intonation patterns, and how those little wavers. If you're not familiar with that, it's like the difference between like this and like this. Like all of these mean very different things in the different contexts. And if you use the wrong intonation pattern, kind of similar to just like tonal languages. If you use the wrong tone, like people are at worst people won't understand you. Or, no, at best people won't understand you, but at worst you could actually end up offending someone potentially. Like these little cues, maybe you're able to pick up more on. I've not done any research on this whatsoever, so I'm just kind of throwing some ideas out there. But I could see that actually being beneficial. It's just focusing on audio. Um, okay, that's fair. I
Mhm.
appreciate I appreciate those answers. Um,
Do you want to hear my social snafu story before I end?
yes, yes, I do.
So I think this, I want to tell this as a fun story. It wasn't very fun for me, but it might be fun
Oh,
for
dag.
people now. Um, to just show that uh, there are things that could happen um, because of a lack of the cultural understanding, not just basic language skills. But this um, story happened within maybe the first week or two after I came to the US. So I was really excited adding people on Facebook as friends because I didn't have Facebook. So I was really happy I have now I have Facebook and I have so many friends. So it was just adding everyone, and there was this guy. He's from Tunisia, and he's Muslim, and we just became Facebook friends. And I looked at his profile photo, and he got this like selfie with filters with like gold chains and sunglasses, and looks really cool. So I wanted to give him a compliment because I thought it looked kind of different from his everyday personality. And if I were the Tina today, I might say, "Oh, that's cool. That's badass." Oh, but being Tina from 2016 and 21 years old with a really limited vocabulary, I said, "Oh, you look like a terrorist." And then he was like, "Oh, really?" Um, and then there was this white guy next to us, and he was really offended on his behalf. Like, Tina, you cannot say that. I think he gave me like a really long lecture of why that is extremely, extremely sensitive and offensive in the US. And I was very confused. I started crying because I thought uh, like I did something really wrong, but I also did not really understand because when 9/11 happened, I was like a really young kid. It did not mean anything to me. Um, and it's not a word I use a lot in Chinese even. And I just meant
Sorry.
that he looked like a gangster-ish cool. Um, but basically, that my Facebook friend also wasn't offended. Also because he's not from that culture, I guess. And he's not from Middle East. Maybe if he were, he might be more offended. But this white guy was so offended. Um, so that was
Yeah.
like a cultural awakening moment for me, at least. That oh, there are things like some words mean so much is like really heavy here. Um,
Mm, mm-hmm,
Now,
mm-hmm,
years later, thinking back, I feel a lot of anger towards this guy because I think he put
mm-hmm,
like his stuff on me, and it wasn't nice because I really didn't know. Um,
mm-hmm.
but I think back then it was one of the first times when I was humbled, when I realized is more important to think before I speak. Um, no matter how much I wanted to make friends, how much I wanted to leave a good impression, how much I want to be
Yeah.
fluent in English.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you for
I,
listening.
I don't think I don't. I don't think I had a moment quite as dramatic as that in Italy. That's a very dramatic one.
Mm,
I think it's interesting too to talk about how to respond because I think that goes back to just demonstrate too that when you're in a new country, no one's going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You know, from a second language perspective or things like that, no one's gonna. If you do the wrong thing or what people view to be the wrong thing, people are not going to care that they're not familiar with the culture. Oh, they're still learning language. The people don't care. People are just going to. It's that idea in psychology that like if it's yourself and you make a mistake, like it's not my character. It's just a situation. But people don't apply that to others, right? They're gonna
mm-hmm,
immediately apply, oh, this is your character. You're the horrible person and things like that. So I think will help also for people if you ever interact with international people in your own countries. Just always trying to keep this thing in mind as well. Um, cool. Tina, any final thoughts for us for today about your secrets to success living abroad?
um, I think if people do care about these stuff, they are gonna pick up on it. And I know
Mm,
people who don't care as much. Um, I don't know. I feel it's like a chicken egg question. Um, some people are probably fine, even with that situation. They might just be like, okay, fine. Um, they
just
may
walk away
not
again.
be as shaken as I was. Um,
I think it's valid.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So if you feel like you're a pretty sensitive person, it might be a good idea to have a therapist
Yeah.
that understands your
Yeah.
culture, but also where you are living at the moment. If that's
Hmm.
you can afford that.
Mm, for sure. Yeah, that's a whole other issue. I do not personally have a therapist, but I think everyone can benefit from seeing a therapist. Um, just to have that kind of resource, because it's just good to have that person to discuss experiences with, because there's a lot that's happened in all of our lives. Um, cool. Well, Tina,
Cool.
thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna put you backstage just for a moment, guys. If you have other questions or topics that you would like us to discuss in the future, be sure to let us know. Thanks to people who stopped by. Thanks to Farad, Abdul. Thank you guys for chilling with us. I know there were others, but those are the ones that said hi. So if you're watching this on the replay, say hey too. And we will see you guys later. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care, guys.